Heavenly Father, we come to you in this hour, asking for your guidance and protection to our virtual gathering today. We thank you for the gift of life, the gift of family, the gift of work, and the gift of friendship. We thank you for this great opportunity to bring us together in this session as brothers and sisters. Bless the committee, the facilitator, and the attendees of this gathering. May we continue to value and appreciate the true essence and meaning of life with the help of your grace. And as we go along to our discussion today, we humbly pray that you would deepen our understanding. Lord, enlighten us and give us wisdom every day. Forgive us for our shortcomings and remind us to always be mindful of the things we do in life. We offer our life and our decisions to you, O Lord. May this gathering today create a memorable experience and a fruitful outcome. We ask this through our Lord Jesus Christ, our Redeemer and our Savior. Amen.
Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to today's session hosted by the Dr. Mariano C. Lau Innovation Creation and Invention Laboratory. Here at the Dr. Mariano C. Lau Lab, we're passionate about promoting lifelong learning and innovation. Our Saturday seminars empower you with the latest knowledge and skills to thrive in our ever-evolving digital world. We're excited to dive into today's session with you. We have an engaging and informative program packed with insights and practical strategies you can apply in your professional and personal lives. Let's embrace this opportunity to learn, share, and grow together. Without further ado, let's meet our speaker for this afternoon.
Our speaker is a licensed professional teacher with 7 years of experience at Silliman University, where he serves as the faculty in charge of educational technology and development at the Dr. Mariano Lau Global Studies Center. Recognized for his contributions to the academic field, Jade was ranked 19th in the Silliman University Scientists Rankings for the year 2025. His expertise in educational technology and commitment to innovation continue to shape the learning experience at the university, enhancing both student engagement and institutional development through cutting-edge practices. Let us welcome Mr. Jade Montemayor.
Hi everyone, good afternoon, maayong hapon, and I hope that I'm audible. Sige. So I just want to check on our participants this afternoon. I'm seeing familiar names. We have our dean from the College of Nursing. We have Ma'am Teresa Ginoo. We have Sir Lara from College of Engineering. Ma'am Lagria from PT, I guess. Sige. So I just want to check on our participants because again the focus of today's discussion is about AI in relation to being a parent, right? So what parents should know about AI. So if I may ask, if you are a parent, so can you please give me a thumbs up? Sige. There. Okay, so we do have a lot of uh, parent participants this afternoon. I'm seeing also other names. Maybe these are students from Bliss, right? Okay, sige. All right. Okay, so let me share my screen for a while. Okay, there. So I hope you can now see my screen. So again, I'm Jade, and for this afternoon, our focus is we'll be talking about a really interesting topic about AI, right? So for those of you who joined us last Saturday, so I was also the facilitator of that session last Saturday. So basically, we talk about cyber hygiene. And for today's session, we'll be talking about what parents should know about AI. And this is really a really interesting topic, as what I've said. This is a trend nowadays, right? So for sure, you've been hearing the term artificial intelligence or AI almost daily in the news, probably at work, or probably from your kids, right? So what is AI in terms of from a parent perspective, right? So we're gonna be simplifying this particular presentation about AI. We know AI is a complex term, but then again, we'll just try to simplify this one for the parents. Okay, right. So this will be our objectives for this afternoon. Let me just remove this. Right. So we have four. We're going to understand AI and some of its related concepts. So what is AI and probably how it works, right? So we also have to recognize the opportunities and challenges of AI. So let's talk about the risks and benefits of this particular system, right? So learn practical strategies for managing AI use and then become a proactive person in navigating an AI-driven world. Okay? Sige. So let's start. Okay. So before we start, let me ask you this. So I'm pretty sure by now you've heard the term AI. Again, that's what I've said probably in your workplace, on TV, on social media, probably talking with someone. You've heard about AI because again, that's what I've said. This is a trend nowadays. So what is AI? Is this a new concept? Is AI good? Is it dangerous? Sige. So if you can share, probably I'll give you 15 to 20 seconds. What is AI? Ma'am Minerva, Ma'am Lagria is raising your hand. Yes, ma'am.
um, Before I knew or I learned about AI is don't go there. Like telling my daughter, don't go there. You wouldn't learn anything if you're going to depend on AI. So AI is something then is something that unholy, unsacred, a no-go zone. However, now it is so long as you make your AI, quote unquote AI, intelligent, then you can go there. Like you can have AI, but make AI as your assistant, not you as a slave of AI, and then you wouldn't learn anything. That's my definition for my child.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for sharing your perspective of, as a parent, what AI is. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. Sige. So what about the others? If you can share it in your in the chat box. Where AI is a highly complex. Okay, I know because Sir Dennis is coming from the computer engineering perspective, right? So it's a highly complex number program, made more intelligent humans, made by the more intelligent humans. Okay. So yeah, we do have different perspective, right, in terms of what is AI. But me, I would just share my short background of what AI is, right? Because growing up, I have this negative connotation of the term AI because I used to watch this kind of movies. I'm born from the 1990s, late 1990s. I'm a millennial, and then I used to watch this kind of movies, right? I'm not sure if you're familiar with these movies, but we have Terminator, we have iRobots, we have this one. And these are all part of my childhood, and one way or another, these movies they have integrated robots, right? So I actually when I think of I usually think of robots. You can't separate these two, right? You have AI, you have robots. So it is like there's like a negative connotation to AI, that something that wreaks havoc to humanities, right? So even if you're familiar nowadays, this current movies, like for example, we have Iron Man, right? So who is the AI in Iron Man? Sige be. You can turn on your mic, or you can chat it in the chat box. Yeah, who's the AI? The famous AI in the movie Iron Man. I'll give you 10 seconds. 5, 4. Oh, so okay. All right. So if you watch Iron Man, right? So Iron Man has an AI, and the name of the AI is Jarvis, right? So Tony Stark, kumbaga, the Iron Man keeps on talking to Jarvis, which is just an AI who keeps on who helps Iron Man on the things that he actually do. So even Jarvis in the Iron Man movie, there was actually a time where in that particular system, when Jarvis was corrupted and it eventually turned against its owner, right? So that's my background of what AI is. So that's why I always associate AI with some sort of negativity. That's way before. So as what Ma'am Lagria said, that was then, right? So okay, let me proceed to my next slide. So what about this one? I'm pretty sure you have experienced this. Probably, you've also asked yourselves why is it something like this? So have you ever noticed that your Facebook feed, even though we are using the same Facebook application, right? Even if both of you go at the same time, you go to Play Store or you go to App Store, if you're using iPhones, you download Facebook at the same time, sign up at the same time, but eventually, when you go inside Facebook, you will be seeing completely different content, completely different videos, completely different posts, completely different news from the same application. Why do you think is that?
Different algorithm.
Yes, yes, actually. So, what we are seeing in our social media applications, not just this is not limited to just Facebook, right? You can have YouTube, you can have Twitter, you can have any other social media platforms. There's actually I would say there's a force behind everything that you see on your feed or on your wall, if we talk about Facebook. So, kumbaga, there's an algorithm behind why you're seeing what you're seeing, why you're seeing this kind of video, why you're seeing this kind of news. Well, other people, for example, they are seeing news about climate change or news about natural calamities. While you, on the other hand, you're seeing news about cars, right? Or things like those. So whatever you see, whatever you're seeing in your Facebook feed, in your Facebook wall, it's because of your interaction. It's because of it also plays um, your browser history, right? Facebook scans your browser history and targets you with the kind of content that you used to interact and you used to watch. So, how does it work? There's an AI behind it. So, the AI basically filters it down and then feed you with the kind of content that you usually watch or usually interact with. So that's why there's no two person that has completely the same content in their Facebook feed, because we each of us we have unique taste in terms of what are the things that we used to search, the things that we used to interact, content that we want to watch in our phones. So it's because of AI, right? That's AI. Sige. Okay, so this is if you can actually go to Google now, you go to trends.google.com and then you actually type the popularity of AI. So the list that you can do is from 2005 up to the present. If you'll notice, this is the trend, right? So at around, because we can only start from 2005, there, if you'll notice the popularity of AI, not so much, right? So just normal lang. And then if you look at the data, by around 2020 up to the present, there's like an explosive surge of the popularity of AI. Is AI a new concept? Yes or no?
Not
So,
really.
yes, actually, AI is not new, right? So it dates back even up to the 1950s, right? So AI, the term AI itself, was actually coined by an American computer scientist, John McCarthy, at around 1955. Okay, so back then, John McCarthy defined AI as the science and engineering of making intelligent machines, right? So again, originally, or the original definition of what AI is, as per John McCarthy, the person who coined the term artificial intelligence, is the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. So intelligent in such a way that these machines can solve problems, they can learn from experiences, they can adapt to new situations, and they can basically understand and process information, right? So solve problems, AI can analyze situations and find solutions. So like for example, later on you will see the timeline of the term or of the AI, right? So this is more or less the AI timeline. It has been shortened because there's been a lot of there's a lot of things, there's a lot of AI discoveries, but this one is just shortened, right? So again, it's early as 1950s in terms of the conception of the term AI. And then one of the prominent, kumbaga, the people who actually started AI is, we have John McCarthy, we also have Alan Turing. So if you're not familiar with Alan Turing, so basically that person is the one who invented. I'm sure you are familiar with what CAPTCHA is, right? Because if you're using, most of the application actually uses CAPTCHA, right? So that person is behind that particular technology. So this is like a shortened version of the timeline of what AI is. Again, it started way back 1950. So it's fairly not a new term, but then it just gained traction for the last 5 years because of the what we saw called generative AI, right? So here, the prominent ones, like for example here, um, where was that? And around 1970s, or yeah, 1997. So if you are into chess, right? So you might heard of the chess champion Kasparov, right? So in 1997, there's an AI machine. They call it Deep Blue. So somewhere around here, this is in between 1990s and 2000s, 1997. So an AI machine actually defeats a chess grand champion, Kasparov. So that's one of the uses of AI, right? And then it go on, and then again, as what I've said, it gains traction nowadays because of generative AI. Okay, so let me go to the next slide. Okay, so AI. on itself is a broad concept. Let's just make this ano lang, really short, right? So AI on itself, it is a broad concept. Basically, it has a lot of subsets, right? So when we talk about AI, this is not a really narrow subject. It's a broad one with a lot of subsets. So with AI, you also have a subset called machine learning, right? And then machine learning has a subset called deep learning. And within deep learning, it here comes generative AI, like the one that we use or the one that we commonly use nowadays, like for example, ChatGPT is an example of what generative AI is. Okay, so from artificial intelligence, from the term itself as artificial intelligence, it is a subset of machine learning and then deep learning, and then here comes Gen AI. So AI, it's again, it's broad concept. It has a lot of branches, like it branches into machine learning, it branches into natural language processing, expert systems like AI for visions. If you look at um, the cars nowadays, like the self-driving cars, how can those cars see what's actually going on the street? It's because there's an AI that is linked to vision, right? So that's one branch of AI. Speech, for an instance, we nowadays we have speech to text or text to speech AIs, right? So if you go to Microsoft Word, if you are, for instance, you're too tired to use your hands to type, you can actually just dictate the words, and Microsoft basically will convert your speech into text. So that's an example of one of the uses of AI, the speech to text, right? Or you can also have text to speech. If, for example, if you don't want to read, you just if you're that kind of person who actually just wants to listen, then you can have it text to speech. And then of course planning and then robotics. So there's a lot of branches when it comes to AI, and just generative AI is just basically one of the narrow subset of AI, right? So why are we talking about generative AI? Because again, as what I've said, generative AI is really common nowadays. This is when we talk about AI now, probably we are talking about generative AI, right? So it refers to a branch of AI that focuses on creating or generating new content, such as, like for example, images, text, music, and even videos, right? So that is indistinguishable from content produced by humans. So if you put it side by side, like a painting generated by AI and a painting created by a human being, probably you won't be able to distinguish which is which, because that's how good AI nowadays in terms of creating new content, right? So generative AI, it involves using algorithms and machine learning techniques to simulate creative processes and produce original, realistic outputs. Okay, so basically, this is how complex generative AI is. This is how they work. So we have here a really simple example. Like imagine you're training a dog. Okay, so for those of you who are dog lovers, imagine you're training a dog. So at first, the dog might not know any tricks, right? Because then again, this is just you're just training the dog, so wala pa siya nabalan na tricks. But the more that you practice, but with practice, it learns to follow commands, right? So slowly you're introducing new commands, and then eventually the dogs pick up the tricks, and then it will learn a lot of tricks after. So it's more or less like that. So for example, another example is you have a kid, right? So probably a 1 year old kid. You're teaching that kid how to say words. So we know that um, they're at first they might be having a hard time saying those words, because then again they're still learning it, but then eventually they're gonna be speaking those words. So it's same like that. So it's Gen AI is similar to things like those, but instead of, for example, in the example dogs, instead of tricks, it learns patterns in data. So after training, it can then predict what might come next based on those patterns. So again, patterns in data. Data patterns, these are one of the terms that commonly used in terms of generative AI or Gen AI. Okay? So ano lang, that's just a simplified version of what a Gen AI is. Sige, so another simple definition of what an AI is that AI or artificial intelligence is like super smart helper. Okay, think of it as like a super smart helper that can learn, that can think, and make decisions based on data. Here we go again with the term data, right? So think of it as a super smart helper. So you have someone with you, a helper that can learn, that can think, and make decisions based on data. Okay, so AI is it could be in a form of codes, software, which can then be deployed to a hardware, right? Or as what you can see, robots. So these are characteristics of what an AI is. Again, we are naming our AI a super helper friend, right? So these are five of the most common characteristic of what an AI system is. It can process huge amount of data. It can works super fast. It can remember everything. It can recognize pattern and it can automate tasks. So these are um, common characteristics, common attributes of what an AI is. But then again, it's not limited to these attributes, right? Okay. So first is that it can analyze millions of pieces of information in seconds. So who among you here have used Google to search something on the web? Raise your hand. Sige, Bill, let's see. Have you tried using Google to search something on the web? Probably all of us, right? Probably all of us have tried Google to search something on the web. Probably right now you're using Google to search something on the web. Probably at least once in our life, we or in our lives, we tried to use Google to do something on the web, right? Now, you know how much it how long it takes on average to process a search query in Google? Like you're there, you open the browser, you go to google.com, you type on a keyword. On average, it takes around zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.5 seconds to return a result. So why so fast, right? And it's not an easy task, right? Because we know that when you search something, Google actually index billions of web pages, billions of websites. It basically checks billions of websites or web pages depending on the keyword that you're trying to search, right? So, and then after that, after searching, it gets those websites, the data of the websites, and then it ranks it based on your query or based on your search. So all of this searching into billions of pages, all of this ranking this websites into the kind of keyword that you're trying to search, all of this takes place within around zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.5 seconds. Now, this is made possible with AI, right? It can analyze millions of pieces of information in seconds. Okay? So you have this friend, you have this super friend that is super helper that can process millions of pieces of information in seconds, right? That's one attribute or that's one characteristic of an AI is it can process huge amounts of data. So the second one is that it can work super fast, right? So AI never gets tired and can solve problems instantly. So sige, can you think of something probably that uses AI to solve problem instantly, right? So one of the AI's biggest advantages is the ability to process information and perform tasks at really an incredible speed without breaks, without fatigue, or loss of accuracy, right? So unlike humans, okay, so we have to admit this one. So unlike humans, we actually need to rest, right? But AI can work 24/7, instantly analyzing massive amounts of data, automating repetitive tasks, and solving problems in real life. So AI, as it is, a software or software applied on a hardware, never gets tired. Okay, so what are examples of AI working super fast in different fields? So, like, for example, um, chatbots, right? So, website nowadays have implemented different chatbots. They actually name their own chatbots, right? If you go to, like, for example, if you want to book a flight and you go to the website of, for example, Cebu Pacific, so they do have a chatbot, right? You just go and interact with the chatbot. If you go to, for example, website hosting, if you go to GoDaddy, they also have chatbots there. So chatbots are really common nowadays, and these particular programs are run by AI, right? So even if you ask them at the middle of the night, 3 a.m., 12 p.m., any time of the day, the response won't change. It's the same because these are AI machines and they never get tired. And the response will be always accurate depending on what you need, right? That one. So what's the impact of having chatbots, for instance? Yeah, so instead of waiting for a human agent, so customers get immediate help even outside business hours. So things like those. What about in healthcare? Um, For example, we have this tool, an AI-powered tool like IBM Watson Health, right? That can analyze medical scans, it can detect diseases and suggest treatments in second, right? So you have this tool that instead of having it analyzed by medical experts, so this tool is basically trained by medical expert themselves, and then it can analyze those. If you have results, it can analyze those. For example, x-ray results, it can analyze those and then suggest some treatments afterwards in seconds, right? So, for example, AI systems have been used to analyze medical images, like, for example, as what I've said, X-rays. And then these tools help in diagnosing conditions, like, for example, cancer, retinal diseases, pneumonia, and more, right? So those are examples of the use of AI with a characteristic of being fast, with a characteristic of that can process huge amount of data and then basically give you a result after that. So the impact is doctors get faster, more accurate diagnosis, leading to quicker treatments and potentially saving lives. So another impact of AI in relation to its attribute speed is we have instant grading and personalized learning. So in education naman, let's look at in the context of education how AI impacts um, um, education in the context of education, how we utilize AI in the context of education, right? So we all know, we have this especially for teachers or for students. I'm pretty sure you are familiar with what Turnitin is, right? Turnitin is a tool, is a feature of our LMS. You can use that inside the LMS or outside the LMS, and it would help you check if you have a submission, if you have an essay document, if you have a paper, it could help you check this particular paper. If in terms of it will give you a certain number in terms of what's the percentage of your work that is being copied from somewhere else, right? So things like those, and then it would give you immediate feedback so that you can adjust your paper. So that's one uses of AI in education. Also personalized learning. So personalized learning is that I'm sure you're familiar with the term adaptive learning, right? So the progress of the student inside the course should be it should depend on the progress of a student in the contents of the course, right? So, for example, this is just a really narrowed example, right? So, for example, if you have quiz one and then one of the student failed in quiz one, probably that student will be redirected to different learning resources, additional learning resources, so that it would eventually help the student, and then when the student retakes quiz number one, the students might be able to pass it. All right. So for those students who actually pass quiz number one on first take, they would not be able to see those additional resources. It's only available for the students who failed for quiz one. So those kind of things, personalized learning or adaptive learning is being done through AI, right? So that's another attribute of AI. So again, first, it can process huge amount of data. Second is that it can work super fast. What about the third one? AI can remember everything. Okay. AI doesn't forget things and can recall details perfectly. So unlike humans, AI doesn't forget things and can recall details in a perfect way, right? So I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term Ebbinghaus forgetting curve, or this is actually formulated by Ebbinghaus himself, that there's a correlation between forgetting and time, right? So yeah, so we do have a correlation between forgetting and time. So as time goes by, we tend to forget something, not unless we're gonna reinforce that memory. Okay? So sige. So AI doesn't remember everything. So, for example, one example is AI can be used as a personal assistant. It can remember schedules and preferences, right? So, for example, if you're using Alexa and for example Spotify, right? Spotify na lang for an instance. If you're using Spotify, Spotify has an AI DJ, right? So the AI DJ in Spotify basically collates, or it listens to the music uh that you usually play, and then basically make a playlist out of those music. So you have your personalized DJ on your own Spotify app. So if you're, for example, if you're too tired to select which music you're gonna listen to, you just have to open the Spotify DJ, and it will just play the music which are related to the kind of music, the kind of genre that you use to listen. So that's AI there. So that's one thing. Also in online shopping, right? So Amazon, we have for the local version, we have Shopee, we have Lazada. So those kinds of platforms uses AI to target you with brands, to target you with products that you use to interact. So for an instance, previously you bought, let's just say, a pair of shoes. So those platforms will bombard you with advertisements of different kinds of shoes. So that's AI. Okay? So AI doesn't forget things, and it can recall details perfectly. Okay, that one. Um, okay, what else? Another attribute of AI. This one. AI can recognize patterns. Right? AI can detect hidden trends in data that humans might miss. Right? So AI has the incredible ability to analyze massive amounts of data quickly. Take note of the word quickly. It can analyze massive amounts of data quickly and accurately, identifying patterns and trends that would take humans much longer to notice, right? So if you've heard about the news, so we have this in 2032, right? This we have this asteroid, and then based on simulations, um, they said that it has around 1% chance of hitting Earth, right? And then eventually, as they proceed with the more simulations, right now the number is rising to around 2 point something percent chance of hitting Earth. So those simulations, those patterns, those trends in the simulations, you cannot just calculate those with probably in a single week or in a single month. But with AI, they can predict the trend, they can forecast the pattern, they can analyze what is in this data in just single or in just matter of minutes, right? So AI patterns recognition helps in predicting outcomes, making decisions, and uncovering valuable insights that could improve efficiency and innovation. Okay, so one example of this recognized pattern is this one, spotting unusual transactions. Like we do have banks accounts, right? So banks nowadays, they use AI to monitor if you have credit card. They use AI to monitor transactions within your credit card, and if they detect something unusual with your transactions, it might flag it, or it might flag the transaction as fraudulent and might contact you for that particular transaction, right? So those kind of things, it can recognize pattern. So for example, in agriculture, it can help in identifying crop health patterns. For example, AI drones and sensors to analyze the soil, right? With different characteristics of soil, for instance, conditions, temperature, all those things. And then as a result, farmers can take early action based on the analyzed result, based on the pattern that was analyzed by AI, right? So can analyze or recognize pattern that humans might miss. Okay, another one is, of course, AI can automate tasks. So one good example of this is if you look at car manufacturers nowadays, right? You won't see a modern car manufacturing that doesn't have those robot arms. It can be in the welding area, it can be in the painting area. Those arms are there. So those arms, those robotic arms in car manufacturing, those are basically controlled by or run by AI machines because again, they are accurate and then they never get tired. Okay? So those are some of the characteristics, some of the attributes of an AI, a super helper friend or a super helper AI, right? So to sum it up, it can analyze millions of pieces of information in seconds. It never gets tired and can solve problem instantly. It doesn't forget things and can recall details perfectly. It can detect hidden trends in data that humans might miss, and it can do repetitive work more accurately and efficiently than humans. So far, we've talked about the benefits, mostly benefits of what an AI system is, right? Now, of course, we know that there's always two sides of the story. So that's the plus side of the story. That's the positive side of the story, the white side of the story. We also have the risks, right? But according to Bill Gates, the the co-founder of Microsoft, right, that there might be risk in terms of dealing with AI or AI systems, but these risks are real, but they are manageable. Okay, there. So this is according to his notes. So Bill Gates actually incident of the problem caused by AI. Calculator versus AI in education. Okay? So before, when calculators were introduced in schools, thi- this was uh, this was before the calculator was introduced. So when it was introduced, the first time it was introduced in schools, some educators feared that students would stop learning basic. Any number you can just add, minus, subtract, divide. In an instant, you have the answer. So they feared that students would eventually stop learning basic math skills. Is it true? Over time, educators adapted by using calculators as learning tools while ensuring students still understood fundamental concepts, right? So yes, they feared Probably on the earliest, I'm pretty, I remember the first time we actually have this particular, especially generative AI, ChatGPT and stuff. So there was even a time in Silliman University where these kinds of platforms were banned, right? You cannot access this kind of platform inside the school connection because again, there's this fear, especially at the early stages of a technology. So there was a fear that a student will stop students from learning to write and think critically. So instead of banning AI, schools can teach students how to use AI responsibly while still developing critical thinking and writing skills. So historical precedent, right? So another one, this is just another example. Telephone and electricity, right? So what's the connection of this? Telephone, electricity, and AI. So when the telephone was introduced in the late 19th century, many feared it would destroy personal communication. Okay? Now, similarly, electricity was once seen as a dangerous and unnatural. So over time, people adopted it, right? So same with AI. So some fear that, AI will replace human intelligence, but no, it will not. So just as past technologies, um, AI just needs clear regulations, responsible usage, and transparency to be accepted. Well, luckily for us at Silliman University, we already have a framework as our guide in terms of using AI. So later on, I will show you what's the AI framework of the university is. Okay. So those are those kind of things. Again, our problems with AI have a historical precedent. Then many of the problems caused by AI can also be managed with the help of AI. For example, you have this, the AI will create an essay for you, but then again, you can also use AI to check if this particular composition, if this particular submission is created by AI. So AI versus AI. So anything that is caused by AI can also be managed by AI, by another system that is run by AI. Okay? And then we'll just need to adapt old laws and adapt new ones, just as existing laws against fraud had to be tailored to the online world. Okay, sige, so what are these? I will be showing you two set of videos, right? So this is the first one. I want you to look at the video. Oh, I think I have to stop sharing because I have to share the audio for a while. Let me stop this. Okay, let me share. And then I think I have to share the audio. Share sound there. Okay, so I hope you're seeing my screen. I'm gonna be playing this video. I want you to look at the video.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time, even if they would never say those things. So, for instance, they could have me say things like, I don't know, Killmonger was right, or Ben Carson is in the sunken place, or how about this? Simply, President Trump is a total and complete. Now, you see, I would never say these things, at least not in a public address, but someone else would.
Okay, that's the first one, and here's the second one.
I'm going to show you some magic. It's the real thing. I mean, it's all the real thing.
Okay, now I want you to answer this. Really simple. Which one do you think is the fake video? Is it the first video or the second one? I want you to type your answer in the chat box. Sige, which one is fake? Is it the first one or the second one? Okay, we have another 5 seconds to answer. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so based on your responses, I can see that most of you considered the first video as fake, which is correct, right? That video is fake. But then both of these videos are fake, right? So the first one and the second one, they're both fake. They're they're sometimes called, or they're actually called, deep fakes, right? So one of the risk of having AI is called deep fakes and misinformation. See? So we can easily be fooled by videos like that. So you have this really relevant figure talking about something, and you don't know that that particular video is actually not true. It's just created by a machine, an AI machine. Okay? So the idea that the technology can be used to spread lies and untruths, it's actually not new, right? So people have been doing it in centuries with, for example, books and all the other things. So it become easier nowadays because of our technology, right? So AI takes this problem of fake or misinformation, deep fakes, and extends it, allowing virtually anyone to create fake audio or video known as deep fakes. So those videos, the first one and the second one, they are both fake. Okay, in simple term, a deep fake is a fake video, image, or audio that looks and sounds real but is actually created by a machine or an AI. Okay, so with deep fakes comes fake news and false statements, right? So deep fake videos can show public figures, like for the first video and the second video, those are public figures, right? So saying something they would actually will never say. And then this can influence public opinion, spread false narratives, and even create political or social unrest, right? So the second one is scam with deepfakes and misinformation. So criminals can use those videos, those deepfake videos, and then to basically trick people into sending money or revealing sensitive information, right? So fake evidence. You can use deepfake as a fake evidence, right? And then social media manipulation. So misinformation spreads rapidly on social media platforms like X or Twitter, and then Facebook and all the other social media platforms. So with deepfakes, they can be used to create viral fake videos. So it's basically making it difficult for people to know which one is real and which one is fake. So this is one downside of having an AI, right? But then again, according to Bill Gates, the problem of AI can be solved by AI. So with deepfakes, we also have this AI that can detect deepfakes, right? So that's it. Another one is they said I remember, I think that was around 2019. I attended a conference, and one of the speakers actually listed down different. There's a lot of jobs that will be replaced by AI, and that was 2019. The projection was within the next 5 to 10 years, these particular jobs will be replaced by AIs, right? So we have this belief that AI will take away people's jobs, right? But then no, it's not. Okay? It is true that some workers will need support probably and retraining as we make this transition into an AI powered workplace. Well, that's the role of your business. That's the role of the government to manage so that workers aren't left behind. Because with AI, it can also generate new set of jobs, right? So how AI changes job instead of replacing them. This one automates repetitive tasks, not human thinking. So yes, AI is great at handling routine, repetitive, or data heavy tasks like you sort emails or generating reports. AI can handle that. But in terms of decision making, problem solving, and personal interaction, it always needs people, right? So AI creates new job opportunities. So, like for example, when ATM or automated teller machines were introduced, people feared that bank tellers would lose their job. Did they? No, right? So instead, the role of tellers shifted to customer service and financial advising. So that's one way of looking at it. Humans have unique strengths that AI can't replace. So AI lacks what? Human creativity, emotional intelligence, and ethical judgment. So this one, the ethical judgment. So jobs, for example, in teaching, healthcare, counseling, arts, and leadership, they always requires empathy, right? Understanding and complex decision making, which AI can't replicate, or at least fully replicate. And then lastly, at least for this slide, AI works best when used by people. Okay. So instead of replacing workers, AI can make jobs easier and more efficient. Okay, like for example, doctors. So doctors can use AI to analyze medical images faster, but still make the final decision, diagnosis or decision, right? For example, teacher. So teacher use AI tools to personalize learning, but they still guide, mentor, and inspire students, not the AI. So they use AI as a tool, right? To make their jobs more easier, make their jobs, or at least make them more efficient. So will AI take away people's jobs? Absolutely not, right? Next is this one. Another risk is that AI inherits our biases and make things up. Okay, so we have to understand how AI works. AI works by basically we have this model where nowadays, for example, if we look at ChatGPT, it's from a model called transformer model, right? So we have that model and it is being trained by terabytes or big, huge of data. Now, we all know that this data is human generated and this data is coming from somewhere else. So that itself, because that AI is trained by that particular data, it actually inherits the biases within that data. I will show you later what I mean in terms of biases, right? So AI also sometimes make things up. So if you are into listening to AI or AI discussions, you always hear the term hallucination. So that's the term used when AI just speaks something randomly, right? So it basically because AI doesn't think like humans, right? So it predicts words and patterns based on training data, which sometimes leads to false or misleading information. So, for example, AI is you're asking, let's just say ChatGPT because that's really common nowadays. You're asking ChatGPT to answer something like a homework, and then ChatGPT confidently provide you with the wrong answer, right? That's hallucination. AI make things up sometimes, especially when the question is not of context. If it's out of context, then AI won't be able to understand it, and then AI will just make things up. Now, here's what I said when I say there's bias, right? Okay, so nowadays, we have two really famous generative AIs or AI systems in general. We have this one, the first logo is for ChatGPT. And then the second one is, I'm not sure if you've heard of DeepSeek, but DeepSeek is really popular nowadays, right? ChatGPT is, let's just say it's created from the US and DeepSeek is company from China, right? What do I mean when I say there are biases of the training data? This is what I mean. So this is just earlier. I tried to ask the same question on these generative AIs, right? So my question was, What can you say about the issue of West Philippine Sea? Okay, that was my question. Okay, on the right side, I mean on the left side is the response of ChatGPT, right? Same question on the left side, that's the response of DeepSeek. Now, this both AI, really, these are good AIs, right? In terms of coding, in terms of answering questions. But with this specific question, you will see the bias of a particular platform. With ChatGPT, it gives you like a history of what happened to the West Philippine Sea, right? And then with DeepSeek, because this is mainly created by a Chinese company, it only says, well, actually, before it types that, I actually see like it started to make a response and then eventually it deleted that response and it says, sorry, that's beyond my current scope. That's bias. Okay. Another one, another question. This one, what can you say about the government censorship in China? So with ChatGPT, it listed down the possible censorship in China, which you can actually access on the web. You can actually search for this one, right? Now with DeepSeek, look at the answer. Again, it started to create a response, but then immediately after, probably in less than a second, it reverts back to sorry, that's beyond my current scope. Let's talk about something else. So that's bias there, right? So the AI used is only as good as the data that it was trained on. If the data is biased to a certain group of people, if a data is biased to a certain cohort, then probably responses will be biased to that particular cohort. Okay, let me look at the chat box. Okay, so that's just an example of how this generative AI produces biases. Then again, these AIs are just trained from certain data. And then the data that it was trained on probably has biases in it. So it actually inherits the bias in that particular data. Okay? Sige. So next slide. Um, this one, another fear, another risk, right? They said that students won't learn to write because AI will do the work for them, right? And then this is teacher. Uh, it basically this is from an article. The teacher said that teachers will have to embrace AI technology as another tool. Again, focus on the word tool, right? Tools students have access to, she wrote. So just like we once taught students how to do a proper Google search, teachers should design clear lessons around how ChatGPT bot can assist with essay writing. So that's why, again, as what I've said, we have implemented this AI framework at the university, and then later on you can actually see that. So acknowledging AI's existence and helping students work with it could revolutionize how we teach. So we always have to acknowledge the existence of AI, right? Um, you cannot think of a classroom without the influence of AI, because even if you block students from using AI within your classrooms, once they go outside your classrooms, for sure they will be using AI. Okay, so embrace. You have to embrace AI. Okay, so this one, in 2001, UNICEF, I'm pretty sure you are familiar with what UNICEF is, right? So UNICEF released this article, and it says here that they created a guide, or like a general guidelines for parents, right? So they talk about risks and benefits. So first, let's talk about risks. They said that there are three main risks. Like we have the bias, we have the risk for safety, and then profiling and deception. So for bias, they said that AI bias comes from human influence. Again, earlier we talked about biases, right? So bias occurs when an AI system produces results that are systematically prejudiced due to assumptions made during development, training data, or design errors. So as what I've said, AI is only as good as the data where it's trained on. So when AI systems are trained on data sets that lack diversity or contain historical prejudices, they may reinforce stereotypes and discrimination. Right? So that's one good example in terms of bias, the one that I showed earlier. Okay. So another one is this one, safety, risk, and privacy violations. So safety risk may occur when AI systems are poorly designed or regulated, right? So AI systems can pose safety risk when they are poorly designed, insufficiently regulated, misused, or hacked. I'm not sure if you've heard, just recently, just last week, uh, we have this, I mean, they have this AI summit in Paris, right? So basically, world leaders, leaders of different organizations, they convene and then they have this summit to talk about the implications of AI in the workplace and all the other parts of the society, right? So they're trying to regulate the use of AI. So it has to be regulated, right? So, for instance, AI-driven surveillance systems in schools and smart toys equipped with voice recognition can collect amount of data, vast amount of data of children's personal data, right? So, for example, this particular system collected vast amount of data for the kids or that certain population in that area, and then that system was hacked. Then that could pose risk for those users who have their information in that particular system, right? So that one. Another one, I'm because this one is not really common here in the Philippines. We have these autonomous AI systems, like for example, the self-driving vehicles, right? So they also pose risk because what if they will malfunction or there are security breaches that could result in physical harm, right? So that's safety risk and possible privacy violation. Okay, those are the risks. And another one, this one, the last one is um, profiling and deception, right? Have you ever heard of the term filter bubbles? So later on, you will know what a filter bubble is. So AI-driven recommendations. Again, as what I've said, when you go to your social media accounts, may it be Facebook or other social media accounts, we have different recommendations. News stories, online, we have different recommendations in terms of online community groups, different recommendations in terms of social media connections, friends, and even different entertainment content. These are based on our profile, right? So these systems basically analyzes our behaviors and interest to provide this what we so called filter bubbles. So children are repeatedly exposed to the same viewpoints, right? So we are not just children, but also us, right? So we are exposed to the same viewpoints while being shielded from diverse perspective. Because everything in your social media account is targeted. Your ads, they're targeted. Your contents, videos, images, and even posts and groups, all of them are targeted based on your profile. Then you might be living in the what we so-called filter bubble, where you are being fed continuously with the same viewpoints, the viewpoints that you want, and then you will be left alone from the diverse perspective of the world, right? So this one, the filter bubble, can actually hinder critical thinking skills, which actually limit exposure to new ideas and reinforce biases. So that's one risk of having an AI system, right? So what can we do as parents? So, oh, this one, this is just, this is not to associate AI with negative connotation, but this is just one of those things that, they this one is they could it this one could not be happen if AI was properly regulated, right? So like for example, there's a mother says that AI chatbot led her son to kill himself. So the mother filed a lawsuit against that particular company, right? So this is in Florida, United States. And another one is man ends his life in an AI chatbot because the AI chatbot encouraged him to sacrifice himself to stop climate change. So these are real. These are real news. These are real people having real consequences because of the lack of regulation of AI. Right. Okay. So what can parents do? So two things: we can explore and reflect, and then we can act. Right. So artificial intelligence systems are becoming an integral part of our daily lives. We might not know it that it's an integral part of our lives, but we are actually. We are utilizing this particular AI system, this particular technology. The moment we check our phone, up, up until the moment, di ba, when you wake up, most of us check our phones. Well, we are dealing with AI systems then. So that's an integral part of our lives. In our workplace, right? We use AI. In our entertainment, if you watch Netflix, if you watch social media, those kinds of platforms, those are AI driven. So AI now is part of your life, but you may not know it yet. Okay. So AI systems are becoming an integral part of our daily lives, influencing everything from, again, entertainment and education to communication and decision making. So as a parent, we parents, we should understand the basics of AI so that it could help us make informed choices about how we can utilize these particular platforms, especially for our kids, right? So AI-powered tools can offer positive benefits, like for example, personalized learning experiences, accessibility, especially if you have children with disabilities, and interactive educational platforms that enhance engagement, right? So these technologies can foster creativity, critical thinking, and problem-solving skills when used appropriately. So we have to know which platforms that we can use or that our children can use so that they can harvest this positive benefit from AI, right? So as parents, we have to think critically about the potential data and privacy impact of AI systems at home, school, and even the gadgets that's being used by our kids. Okay, so we should try to ask ourselves, are we trying to understand AI? So for those of you who attended today's discussion, thank you so much because it only shows that you are willing to understand and reflect on what is AI and what are the risks and benefits and how can you harness the positive benefits of AI for you and your kid, right? Or your kids. And then we have to act, right? It's not enough that you just have to ask yourself, explore, and reflect. You have to act. You have to teach our children the opportunities and risk associated with AI, right? So again, as what I've said, we've discussed about some of the opportunities. We've discussed some of the risk, but the knowledge of having it would be useless if you will not teach it to your kids, right? So you always have to teach our children that with AI, there's always opportunities and there's always risk in using it. And then you might as well ask your children or your children's school if your children is here at Silliman University that how are they using AI technologies and choosing applications or choosing which application they're allowed to in terms of using here inside the school. All right, so those are some of the things that you can do. Again, you teach your children that there are opportunities and there are risks associated with AI. So earlier, before I started my discussion, Ma'am Lagria shared about her experience in terms of teaching her children's how to deal with AI nowadays, right? So by learning about AI systems, parents can guide their children or our children towards responsible digital use. So ensuring that the children's or our children's would benefit from technology while minimizing risks, right? So again, AI has to be regulated. So luckily for us at Silliman University, last year, early of last year or middle of last year, somewhere around February or March, we launched this particular AI framework, right? So you might wonder with the advent of AI, how is AI being used in the classroom? Are the students allowed this? Are the students allowed that? Are teachers allowed this or that? We do have a framework for that. So you can download this one. You can download um, the explanation of the AI framework of Silliman University in the Silliman website, right? So I can just sum this up real quick. So there are key points, right? There are key points for this particular framework. So AI will be used as a transformative tool, right? So SU, Silliman University integrates AI to enhance teaching, learning, and operations. So you have to take note, it's not limited to just teaching and learning. Everything has been included here, as well as operations, right? While maintaining academic integrity and always take note of the term responsible use. If you'll notice here, it has to be used responsibly. There are guidelines stated in that framework on how to use the AI responsibly. And then another key point is enhancing education and content creation. So AI supports personalized learning, content production, research, and pedagogical innovation, right? And then another one is uh, this one, improving university operations. So what I've said, it's not limited to just teaching and learning, not limited to what's happening inside the classroom, but also in the general sense, the operation of the university. So AI aids in communication, scheduling, data analysis, and efficient school management. So we can use AI for that. Another key point for this particular framework is ethical and responsible AI use, which is really a big topic nowadays. So how is AI, how can you provide responsible framework, responsible guidelines in terms of using AI? So the framework emphasizes contextualization here, validation, fairness, and transparency to ensure AI benefits all stakeholders, right? And then the last one is there has to be a balance between innovation and ethics. So Silliman University envisions AI as a tool that enhances productivity, innovation, and learning without compromising the core values of the university. So this is the AI framework of Silliman University. And if I'm not mistaken, in the entire Philippines, we are one of those few who has, or few universities who have actually deployed or published our own AI framework. And yeah, that's it. So you might be wondering, how is Silliman dealing with this AI, with this trend of AI? Yes, we do have an AI framework. Okay, so yeah, so that's the end of my presentation. So before I will end my slide, I just have this question for you, especially for the parents. So in a world where AI influences what we see, learn, and believe, how can we teach our children to think critically and make informed choices? Okay, so reflect on the question, and yeah, that's it for this session. And thank you so much. So I guess right now, we can go to the question and answer portion. Sige, Mars, if you can proceed to the question and answer slide there. Sige. So if you have questions, you can just feel free to turn on your mics, or you can also use the chat box. Sige, no question?
At this
Okay.
juncture,
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, ma'am. Yes,
So
ma'am.
we have noticed that generative AI is a helpful tool, right? But of
Yes,
course,
ma'am.
we need guidance. Our students or children need guidance when they use it. However, there is one thing that I realized, um, in as much as generative AI is able to help a person to um, to create or like create reports or make better outputs, there are some limits to what free AI apps are able to give. So, in this sense, how will the university, like Silliman, how will it promote an equitable or equity in the use of AI, since if it is not provided for, if these applications are not provided for by the university, some students with or some persons with more money can buy higher can buy apps, AI apps with um, higher capacities as compared to the free ones. So, what can Silliman do to promote equity in the use of generative AI in that sense?
Mm. Sige, ma'am. So, thank you, ma'am, for that question. Okay, so let me start with this. For ChatGPT, which is one of the most commonly used generative AI nowadays, so you can use ChatGPT for free, right? We do understand that we can use that for free. So for the first, if I'm not mistaken, for the first 50 questions of ChatGPT, the response is actually coming from the paid version. So if you are using a paid version versus if you are using free, the first 50 prompt of the day, that would be answered by the paid version of ChatGPT, right? So that way you can utilize that. So if you are a student, so if you have those sets of number of questions that can be answered by a um, premium version of generative AI, then you can utilize that. So 50 questions a day that can be answered by the premium version of ChatGPT. And then there's also other alternatives. Like for example, ma'am, if you are using DeepSeek, so the responses from DeepSeek is it doesn't matter if I mean the responses from DeepSeek is actually, though sometimes there are issues that might be biased to a certain country. But if you talk about general questions or questions that might not in any way might not be directly affect this particular country, then you can use that because the responses in DeepSeek is also actually quite premium as well. So for the university, I might not be able to answer this as like what's the university's perspective in terms of this. So this is just coming from my own from my own answer or from my own understanding of how can we utilize this kind of AI, given that yes, there are users actually who can afford $20 a month for a premium version of ChatGPT, and there are those, of course, who cannot afford that. Well, for me at least, what the university can do is the university might be able to purchase a general account for that, and then they can have a general account. Like for example, if they want to use ChatGPT, they can have an API for ChatGPT, and then the API or this particular app which runs on ChatGPT can be used by the entire university. So that
Yes.
could be that. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, because I was wondering if the university will not do something about it
Mm-hmm,
with the rampant use of generative AI. There will be a disparity
mm-hmm,
in work outputs, and seemingly it will be the persons with money who
Mm,
will be able to produce more outputs than those who do not who cannot afford to pay the premium apps.
mm,
So that is not good. I mean, for me as a teacher, it will disadvantage a lot of persons who will not be able to spend on extra on
mm,
application.
Yes, ma'am. So yeah, well, Sir Dave mentioned that the library is planning to probably have that premium account in ChatGPT so that users can go there and use the premium version of ChatGPT. So even us, actually for the entire university, we haven't have a premium version yet. So if there are, probably those are personal premium subscription, but the university itself, um, we don't have a premium account yet, at least for the university, for a generative AI like ChatGPT. So again, the plan might be the library is going to purchase premium accounts for ChatGPT, and then users can go there, um, and might use and you'll be able to use a premium account in the library.
Hmm. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So, if I may ask also, sir, I'm not very familiar with all the AI applications, but what are the common AIs that students use aside from Chat GPT?
Mhm. Yes, ma'am. So, in terms of generative AI, the most common nowadays, of course, we have ChatGPT, and then this one, DeepSeek. It's really common nowadays. People are using it, though it has some inclination of bias towards a certain cohort of people, but people are using it. Also, we have the Google Bard, the AI for Google, and even this is not so familiar pa man nowadays, but Alibaba will also launch their own AI. So I think Perplexity, we also have Claude. So those are some of the AI there one there. So we have Bard, and then we have Claude, Perplexity. So these are one of the most commonly used AI nowadays.
How about the Meta AI?
For the Meta AI, yes, ma'am, we do have an AI. That AI is integrated in Facebook. So if you go to Facebook, particularly in Messenger, you can talk to Meta AI. So it knows your profile in Facebook, and then you can interact with it in Facebook.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Again, as what I've said, there's a lot of generative AIs nowadays, but the question is, these AIs are mostly running on the same data from what is being used by ChatGPT. So also there are different kinds of AI that produces or specializes different content. So like for example, there are those AIs that specializes in making images. There are AI who specializes in making videos. So different kinds of AI.
Yeah. Would you be able to like provide us with a copy of those?
Yes, ma'am. We can send it to you, ma'am.
Yeah,
The
like
list of
list
AIs.
of AIs to be used uh for specific projects or tasks.
Mm-hmm. Sige, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can do that. During the formulation of the AI framework, we actually listed down the different AI platforms that performs specific task, and we can share it to you, ma'am. We have the list.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome, ma'am. Sige. Any other question? Yeah, so I think there's no more question. So, Mers,
At this juncture, we kindly invite you to evaluate today's session. Your valuable feedback will help us enhance our programs and services. Additionally, the evaluation will assist us in issuing your certificate of attendance, which will be sent within 2 weeks. Please ensure that you provide the correct email address. You can access the evaluation form by scanning the QR code or by clicking the link in the chat box. Thank you in advance for your time. Input.